record of this fabulous conversation today. All right. Good afternoon. Happy Monday. Welcome all of you to the Division of Child Care Services Community Conversations. This month in April, we're going to be talking about building inclusive spaces for children with special needs. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. For those of you who would like to listen to our Spanish interpreter is going to go ahead and read through these instructions for all of you. And those that do speak English, we're just going to give Andreas a minute to read through these for all. And if you need a hard copy of these, do put your name. There's a Q&A box. Do put your email address in the Q&A box, and I can send you a PDF of these. Wonderful. Thank you, Andreas. All right, Rebecca, let's go to our next slide, please. A couple of housekeeping items before I pass it over to Nora Yates to get us started off this afternoon. All lines are muted. However, we do want you to be able to ask questions during our presentation today. So please put all questions into the Q&A box. To find the Q&A box, you'll go to the bottom right of your WebEx panel. There'll be a question mark. Click that, and that will allow you to put your question in that Q&A box. Also note that this presentation is being recorded in both English and Spanish and will be shared on the DCCS OCFS website. All right, and without further ado, let's get to the good stuff. I'm going to pass it over to Nora.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Welcome. So good to see so many people. Thank you to Piper and the NYSEC team, who are some teammates supporting us for getting these together. You'll notice this is a little bit of a different format than last time. We're trying something new, so appreciate all of your patience in this technology and format. So today we are going to talk about a specific topic that we're excited to bring to you, and some experts here today, a couple topics. So we are going to be accepting questions on topic, like on the topic of building inclusive spaces for children with special needs. So you can use the Q&A, but I really want to just appreciate everyone who joined last time, and we can give an update and talk about the policy statement as well as our guest speakers, both on building inclusive spaces and on our Head Start colleagues. So that's the agenda for today. Welcome. You can go to the next slide. Keep heading in. All right. So just to remind you about the format and schedule of these conversations, we're super excited. We are going to continue bi-monthly, so every other month, and we are going to have interpretation in Spanish. Thank you, Andres. You can send your questions or future topic suggestions to the email address, and recordings will be posted online, so you can distribute, and we will be distributing the PowerPoint screens as well. Hold on, of course I have to sneeze now. Excuse me. Okay, so heading onward. Now, because there's 150 people and growing here today, and lots of discussion among 150 or 200 people is hard, we are going to have a way for you to interact via Slido. So if you haven't used Slido before, if you go to slido.com and you put in Community Conversations April, or you can use the QR code on your phone. I'm going to do it together with us. And if you sign in, I'm going to give everybody a minute to sign in to Slido. That will allow you to have some back and forth with our presenters today and on some of the topics today. So if you haven't gone to slido.com, just grab your phone, use that fancy QR code, Mine, of course, is not working because why would that make any sense? And type in the community conversations April word. So it will come up blank until we start something, so that's fine. So let's go to the next slide and find out who is here, who is in the room. So if you, on your phone, your Slido should have come up and offers you some options. So are you a center director, teacher assistant? Are you a family child care or group family provider? Are you a legally exempt provider or after school provider? Who's here in the room with us today? We're really excited to have folks here. And or you can be an other, and an other is fine too. Curious what the other is, but also other. Great, looks like we've got a lot of others, which is great. And center directors or teachers, staff, group family and family, as well as some after school providers, and legally exempt, I believe, is on the board. That's great. So welcome. We're really excited about doing these calls for childcare providers, but appreciate that there are other folks on the phone who can help spread the word. It's really important to get all that information out there. So about 177 people participated out of 166, so that's great, great representation. So we're gonna keep moving on because we do have lovely topics and lots to get through. All right, so keep your Slido open because I think we're gonna do more. So just keep it open on your phone or on your other computer. We did receive some questions after last time's community conversation. So we wanted to kind of group them into some themes and be able to respond or direct you to some of the answers rather than calling out specific program questions. But we wanted to make sure that you have the resources you need to be able to put forward any questions. You can hit the next slide. So I'm going to pass it over to Meredith Infantino, who's the director of our Child Care Assistance Program.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. We did have a number of questions that came in related to the Child Care Assistance Program after the, either during or following the last community conversations session. So based on that, we've made a decision that we will plan on hosting a session that is solely dedicated to reviewing things about the Child Care Assistance Program later this year. The date still be determined, but we'll let you know as soon as we have that. But today, as time allows, I'm going to try and answer some of the questions that came in related to payments and program closures. So the first set of questions that we had, if we can move to the next slide, please, were around direct deposit. We're very excited to share that we intend to release direct deposit in phases starting this summer. We will be starting with a small number of districts that we have selected based on their payment cycles and also just feasibility for making sure that we can provide adequate support to districts as they start this. I don't have an exact date, but you should anticipate this to start over the course of this summer. We also had a series of questions related to the market rate survey. At this time, the data is being analyzed, and we should have more details related to what the market rates will look like later this summer. It is a little bit too soon to share any additional information on that, but the data is currently being analyzed. We also had a grouping of questions related to applications. And the one thing I want to stress with this is that we did receive a number of questions from the provider perspective related to applications. So we always stress that child care assistance is a parent benefit. So we really want to encourage you to advocate, have your parents advocate for themselves. They should be the ones contacting the local Department of Social Services or local district for a status on their application. In New York City, if they've applied using MyCity, they can log into their MyCity account to check the status. But those questions really need to be referred locally, and they should be coming from the parents because the district is not able to speak to you because it's the parent's case. If we can move to the next slide, I want to cover the next group of questions that we had, which had to do with program closures. One of the things that I want to point out is that we had 2 letters that went out to talk about program closures. The first Dear Provider letter went out on October 13th, and it talked about a whole host of changes that happened, and then we sent a subsequent letter on March 21st of this year to clarify some of the changes we made related to program closures. The way program closures work is that up to 20 program closures are available per licensed, registered, or permitted in New York City, or legally exempt group program per year. The program closure must be due to a state, federal, religious, or cultural holiday, or due to extenuating circumstances beyond the provider's control, for example, disaster, severe weather, or an emergency, provided that such closure is not a result of a regulatory violation. So what that means is that districts are actually setting their policies about what are those federal, religious, and cultural holidays that they acknowledge. They must be consistent across the district, but they are not individual to each program. They are actually established on the district level. Similarly, decisions about disaster or severe weather or an emergency situation would be determined at the district level. So if you have questions about what your district covers, I'm going to suggest that you communicate with the district where families that you serve are coming from, who's funding them, and they can provide information about their local procedures. I'll also encourage you to go back and look at the Dear Provider letters that are on our website. They have a host of information about program closures as well as some of the other changes. So that's a summary of the questions that we had about program closures. And at this time, I think I'm passing back to Nora.
Yeah. So we had many questions on a couple other topics. So I'm going to go through kind of quickly, but wanted to make sure that we get the information out there. We had requests for more information on how folks could get their Child Development Associate or their CDA, which is great. And we want to make sure that we highlight the website here, which is for the ECETP and the EIP program. So if you don't know about the EIP program, you can click here and find out more. You can receive support for receiving your CDA. We have some questions with providers who need help with enrollment and would love to find more families. So we want to encourage you to reach out to your child care resource and referral agencies, the CCR&Rs, who are great help. These are the child care councils, sometimes referred to in your community. So please work with the child care resource and referral agencies. They have a handle on the parent calls coming in. They're doing outreach in their community. So please make sure that you're working with the CCR&Rs. We had several program-specific questions about sinks and cribs and fire alarms. These are the type of questions we want to make sure to direct to your regional office or your regulator, because we can't kind of address every single program is different and every single issue and setup is different. These are great questions to work with your regulator or your regional office on how that fits into your program and what the requirements are depending on your program and your square footage. So appreciate that. And I want to pass it over now to Jim Hart on some of the questions around CBCs and FAMs.
Thanks, Nora. And just wanted to start out and highlight a screen that we have on our website that's specific to the comprehensive background check requirements, as well as using the FAMS system to complete them. At this time, OCFS is expecting programs to be using FAMS to submit and complete the comprehensive background check process. On our homepage, we have on the side of the screen, you'll see there's on the sidebar, it says a CCDBG background checks. When you click on that arrow, it expands, and we have a link there to Training Resource and Information Center, actually a page there. This page has a wealth of information. It's continuously being updated, but we have a lot of resource materials that have been developed to explain how the comprehensive background check process can be completed and navigated using the FAMS system. On this page, we also have the ability to sign up for some of our live technical assistance sessions that we offer. So we really encourage programs to take advantage of the resources here and the technical assistance sessions if you find that you're having some challenges completing and navigating the background check process using the FAMS system. We are confident that the more familiar you get with the use of the system, the more easy the process will be to complete. And our goal was really to streamline the submission of the background check process and also receive the results through the FAM system so that it's a more direct interface with programs using the system. So with that, I'll turn it back over. But again, please take advantage of the resources on our website. We are continuing to make enhancements and improvements to the FAMS process.
Thanks, Jim. I'll just add on FAMS, if this isn't an endorsement, I've never heard one. We were at CSEA's conference on Friday. Thank you, CSEA colleagues. And a longtime provider who's been a provider for 17 years said that she has had the fastest turnaround ever for clearing an employee in 1 week. So she was able to submit through FAMS and get the employee cleared, and she's never experienced that in 17 years. So please, if you have questions around FAMS, please, key in, or even just to kind of get more familiar. The technical assistance sessions are great small group discussions. All right, on to our topic today. So the Health and Human Services and the Biden administration put out a policy statement recently. We wanted to highlight this policy statement because it was really a powerful statement on building inclusive spaces and building inclusion for children with disabilities in our early childhood programs. So the statement was specific to making sure that young children with disabilities should have access to inclusive, high-quality early childhood programs that do provide the support and appropriate individualized attention so that they can fully participate alongside their peers without disabilities. Now, the policy statement is a very complex statement. We include the link here, but also please, read through it and get familiar with it. But the question is, how do we do that? How do we build these spaces? If I've had my program for 40 years, how do I update and include children with disabilities when there's such a wide variety of disabilities in my program? So we recognize how important it is from the president to the governor and here in New York about building these inclusive spaces, but we want to help all of you in how do we do that? How does that implementation work? So we're really excited to have a speaker here today to talk a little bit about, at a high level, what that looks like. I can go to the next screen. And I'm going to hand it over first to Joy Connolly, Associate Commissioner, and then over to our speaker.
Thank you so much, Nora. I really appreciate it. And very excited to introduce Dr. Brigitte Desport, who is an occupational therapist, associate dean, associate professor, mentor, and entrepreneur. She is board certified in pediatrics from the American Occupational Therapy Association, a certified assistive technology professional, and a board certified telepractice specialist. And her resume is quite impressive, so I'm so excited that we're going to be able to hear from her. She has demonstrated her deep commitment to Latinx families and children of Upper Manhattan through her work in early intervention. She dedicates her time to University Hospital at Downstate's at-risk follow-up clinic by monitoring the development of babies who graduated from the NICU and supporting their families. Her primary goals are to provide equity-centered care to the people she encounters and prepare students to be culturally intelligent while providing services to oppressed communities. She's done research, teaching, and has been a co-founder of several student associations. And she is a governor-appointed board member of the Early Intervention Coordinating Council, as well as a member of other national work groups and associations. We are excited to have her present today, and she will tell you more about her background herself. So take it away, Dr. Brigitte Desport.
Thank you, Joy. Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, hit the wrong button. I stopped my video. Sorry about that, folks.
No worries.
Okay. Let me get my screen up. Okay. If you can see it, correct? Fantastic. Okay, so the title of the presentation today is Creating Inclusive Spaces for Children with Special Needs, or the children that I like to call children with unique abilities, and establishing equity, inclusion, and belonging for all children. Okay, so good afternoon. As you heard, my name is Bridget Desport, and I'm happy to have this opportunity to spend time with you, even though it's just a short time, to join this community conversation. So during our time together, I think it is important to explore terms that we tend to use and understand how and why they are being used, and discuss ways that we can exercise equity, inclusiveness, and provide belongingness in our daily lives. Together, I hope today that we will discover ways to organize our community spaces and support families and make meaningful changes in their homes. And finally, I look forward to engaging in enjoyable discourse with all of you. So just a little background, and I know this has a lot of text on it, but just so that you sort of understand kind of like, why am I even here having this conversation with you? So I became an occupational therapist because I had a hand injury. I injured my hand in a car accident, and I did not know anything about occupational therapy. My aunt, who was an OTA, may she rest in peace, told me about occupational therapy, and I decided to research it and become an OT. So I started as a school-based practice occupational therapist, and at the same time, I worked in nursing homes, group homes, and as I continued to work in the school system, I decided I wanted to I wanted to enter or start working with the population of early intervention, and uh, and then I started working in some specialized preschools. So during my time there, I was a staff OT, became a senior therapist, and just kind of like moved up to some supervisory positions, and just basically continued to find ways that I can continue to contribute to the families with whom I worked. Then I said, well, I've been doing field work supervision, which is essentially clinical supervision for a while now, and I thought that I could potentially contribute in the academic setting. So I started to do lectures at NYU and decided to get my doctorate. And I had my first faculty position in 2011, but I still stayed connected to my clinical work. So with my time at Downstate, I'm able to work with my favorite population. I have two favorite populations. The first one being premature infants, so those babies, as was mentioned earlier, that graduated from the NICU, or the neonatal intensive care unit, as well as work with children who are in preschool. And then I'm the principal investigator of an OT program, I should say the occupational therapies program, specialization in early intervention. It really should say concentration, but I changed that. But in any case, that concentration is helping to build capacity for occupational therapists in New York City, or New York State, I should say. And we are preparing graduate students who are interested in working in early intervention by having them work on this focused concentration while completing the occupational therapy program. So just a little bit more background. So as was mentioned earlier, the certifications, we don't have to go through those again. But I was also a member of the National Perinatal Association board, and that was just really important membership, in the sense that it allowed me to stay on as a task force or work group member, and we were able to publish some guidelines for how organizations do their NICU, or I should say their transition planning and preparation for families, to make sure that once their children have graduated from the NICU, they feel more prepared to care for their child when they're at home, and potentially prepare their child for early intervention, and then all of those other processes that follow, preschool, etc. And all the other stuff was already mentioned, but this is just the reason why this is sort of this kind of like separate slide, is because through this work, it allows me to really think critically about creating those equitable spaces, and it allows me to have these closer relationships with families, which is really why I became an occupational therapist in the first place. So terms and definitions. So we're just going to take a moment, because we're talking about equity, inclusion, belonging. What do they actually mean? So every so often I frequently refer to dictionaries, especially when terms and phrases tend to become sort of like these buzzwords. And it's mainly to understand sort of like the rationale for why folks are sort of using these terms and sort of kind of having a better understanding of why society sort of chooses to use language. So I think it's important to have a conversation about these terms, especially these first two terms, equity and equality. Equity should not be confused with equality. And so equity is a right, claim, or interest existing or valid in equity. Not sure that really gives you much information about the definition of equity, which is also quite interesting. And then equality is a condition or state of being the same in number, amount, degree, rank, or quality. So if anything, that's probably a better definition and a lot clearer. But equity is really what people want. We have, a bunch of historical documents that say, every person is equal, but does everyone have equity? And so when we talk about these children that we all work with who have these unique abilities, do they have equity in the spaces that we are sharing? So equity is actually ownership. It's especially when considered as a right to share in future profits or appreciation and value. There is value in equity, and that's so important that we understand that. And equity in education, equity in property ownership, equity in the workplace, including pay, equity in resources, especially our neighborhoods. So having equity equates to power. So if you take a moment to envision what equity would look like for a child with a unique ability in that space. So the next definition is, what is inclusion? So inclusion, the act or practice of including and accommodating people who have historically been excluded as because of their race, gender, sexuality, or ability. So when we think of inclusion, it's hard not to think of inclusion is happening because there's this concept of othering that is happening. So that is why there has to be a conversation about inclusion. But then we have to think about, what does inclusiveness really mean? How does that actually play out in real life? So is it enough to have a child with unique abilities in the same room, sitting at the table? I can be in a room and I'm, woman of color. I can be in a room, but does it mean that I'm actually being acknowledged, that I'm being listened to, or even considered in the space? So a conscious effort has to actually occur or to include a child with those unique abilities. So there must be an intentional choosing of activities. There has to be some intention behind it to make sure that the child actually is included. So I'm going to play this quick video, and it's an example of a daycare, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Well, today is Leap Day, but it's also Rare Disease Day. And for families who have a child with a rare genetic disease, there's a place in Baltimore County that aims to help. PACT, P-A-C-T, is an affiliate of the Kennedy Krieger Institute, and it's helped Amy Baker's daughter, Megan, who was born with a rare genetic disorder.
PACT is a daycare with nurses and physical therapists and occupational therapists and speech therapists all in one place, but it's still that typical daycare with kids having fun and enjoying themselves and interacting with their teachers and the other kids.
And PACT helps take care of children from birth to 5 years old.
Okay, told you it was quick. So what did you hear or see that indicated inclusiveness? And I think we have a moment for folks to, I don't know if I can see the chat, but maybe sharing what your thoughts are about that quick video. And I may have to go back and look at the chat. I'm sorry, I don't want to stop sharing my screen. So I guess I do not have access to it. Okay.
So far, Bridget, oh, here we go. Lori responded, typical daycare, comma, services and supports available on site.
Yes, exactly. And that's and when we talk about that, what is sort of that typical? We know what typical means, but they were able to make it work so that, and I don't know about you, I looked at the video, and even though I have a trained eye, it was I had to look at it a couple of times to really pick out the children who had those unique abilities. And everyone was really sharing the space. Everyone was participating. Everyone was, riding a bike, building blocks. So one of those children had a unique ability. So I think it's important to sort of start thinking that the children are not really different, even though we know that they are. That makes sense. So the next definition is belonging. So belonging is a feeling of being happy or comfortable as part of a particular group and having a good relationship with the other members of the group because they welcome you or accept you. And I got this definition from the Cambridge Dictionary instead of Merriam-Webster because the Merriam-Webster definition was actually not particularly good. So this is also quite interesting because again, there has to be this sort of uh, uh, othering that's occurring for someone to feel as if they are belonging. So this was also a pretty straightforward definition, and I thought it was quite clear. My experience has been that if we start from creating equitable, inclusive, and affirmative spaces, then the belonging is just going to come along. It's going to happen. The person will feel affirmed. The child will feel as if they belong. And there's no need to do sort of something extra. So just basically setting up the conditions so that belonging can occur. So there's another one that I wanted to, I'm going to tee this one up. We're not going to watch the whole video because it's 5 minutes long. So I thought I had it ready. There we go.
He's learning in class. He's engaged in class. He has relationships. Before, we were like thinking maybe we're going to be there for the rest of our lives to support him with all the needs that he got. But we are so happy to see that he can really do the things that he can do right now. Those skills has developed so much. He can truly create something wonderful, and that really makes us very proud.
I think what we know now is that there are more questions than there are answers, and to be open to every opportunity that you are given to learn and to develop always what's in the best interest of the child, and to give them those opportunities to show you what they need and to listen to them.
It makes me really optimistic for his future. I used to worry a lot about, would he fit in? Would he get picked on? How would his classroom environment be? But he has become quite the popular guy at school. So he comes into class and I can't even tell you how many kids hug him. He has true friendships, true relationships in class. And he brings a special just energy to his class. And it's positive for his classmates too, to see that.
I hope inclusion promotes awareness to those typically developing kids that there are other kids like our son that need support as they try to learn their way through life.
There's a softness there. There's an empathy there that I see in his peers. So we didn't expect that, but we love it.
We know that young children need a variety of rich experiences with all of their peers. And we also know that not only children with, but those without disabilities benefit from inclusive environments. Wisconsin's vision, every child a graduate, college and career ready, is not possible unless our children with disabilities have the opportunity for meaningful participation in their classrooms, in their schools, and in their communities. Now is the time to get past the hurdles. Whether you work in private or public school settings, in center or family-based childcare, Head Start or special education services, every one of us will be able to take great joy in making a difference for our kids and their families.
Okay. So what we heard through this video is that all children benefit from learning one another and building a caring community. And then that the caregivers learn some strategies that can also be applicable to typically developing children. As one of the presenters in this video noted, that this is what that evidence really supports, that children actually do learn well when they are sharing spaces with children who have unique abilities. Are there some things that anybody noticed in the video or something that maybe resonated with you during the playing of this video?
And you can put that in the Q&A box, and to access that Q&A box, just click that the question mark on the bottom right, and I'll read those out once you put them in that Q&A box.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
So I will move forward. So in case there was anything, I just wanted to pause for a moment. Okay, so celebrating unique abilities. How do we do that? So we're going to discover some ways that we can celebrate children and even adults. This applies to some of the adults that we encounter in our daily lives with unique abilities. So in order to do that, we have to figure out, where do we begin for creating equitable and inclusive spaces, thereby celebrating unique abilities. So first we have to presume ability, and we have to presume intelligence. If we're not capable of seeing these qualities in these unique children, then we are doomed from the start. This image contains a few famous people who have documented disabilities and have gone to have successful lives and careers. This image is also evident of something else. However, that's for another presentation that's related to equity. But again, first we have to start with presuming ability and intelligence. Second, to create equitable spaces, we also have to recognize that environment and contextual factors affect participation, meaningful participation. We also must acknowledge that those contextual factors that let me start that again. We also must acknowledge that we are contextual factors that can be barriers to a child's participation. So to make sure we're all on the same page, I don't know if people know what participation means, and it just basically means participating in the things that a child or person wants to do in their lives. So participate in life activities. So it could be recreational, it could be learning, could be whatever it is that they want to do that is meaningful to them, to that person or that child. So both of these 2 points are so important, because if you're not thinking in that way, so if you're not thinking that the child has ability and the child has intelligence, and you're only seeing the disability, and if you're not recognizing that the environment and context have significant impact on their ability to perform, to participate, then a paradigm shift has to occur. So that paradigm shift has to be exactly this: presume intelligence and presumability and intelligence, and understand that the environmental factors and contextual factors have an impact on a child's participation. So you have to think to yourself, there is nothing wrong with this child, and that's how you're able to create those inclusive spaces. You have to tell yourself that they're fine, and that we have to create an environment that's going to support them so that they can successfully participate in their life activities. And I think it's important for us to sit with that for a moment. Does anyone want to share what comes up for them when I say those things?
While people are putting their comments in there, we do have a couple of comments that came in from your last ask. The first one was that parents felt it was very meaningful that other parents and children could learn from their experiences. Another person said that the kids look happy and the parents look happy. And then Jennifer said that agree that all children learn empathy and acceptance from having children, from being with children of varied levels of ability.
Thank you for
And
sharing those.
Lori says a resounding yes to your last ask.
Thank you for sharing those. Yes, I mean, and if we also think about when we have children with unique abilities sharing the same space, we never know when one of the children with whom we think is typically developing or at least presented that way to begin with actually goes through some kind of change or starts to have difficult times. So whatever strategies and things that we incorporate or any kind of changes that we do to make the environment equitable and inclusive, that child is going to benefit and we won't even know it because it hasn't been captured, it isn't documented, so for all of those reasons why it's just so important that we um, uh, see all of these children as the same. So, how do we create these welcoming? And I just put school environments as sort of like school as a general, but I know you folks are daycare and community centers, but these are all places of learning. Children are learning from you. So I just put that under the category of school. So the first one, and this is something that I'm such an advocate of, for, and that is supporting various forms of communication. So, if we give children a voice, we are giving them power. And it does not have to be this voice, the voice that I'm using to speak. We can incorporate signing. If they're using an augmentative communication device, incorporating that, letting them make choices with that device. You can have other children who are engaging with them and playing a game with them using just really basic, like I said, either sign or communication devices or gesturing or a simple communication board. So again, it has to start from there, giving them a voice. Otherwise, they're basically just sitting in the corner and their brain is not developing because the brain can still develop. Just because they have a disability does not mean that they are not still developing and progressing and growing. Just the changes are tend to be a little bit more incremental than a child with that is typically developing. Provide opportunities to choose, which I sort of kind of couple that with communication. But if you think about, you can give an infant a choice. You can show them two things of clothing and they'll gravitate or reach towards the color that speaks to them. So, even starting out as early as that, giving choices to our children is just again right away giving them autonomy, giving them equity in the space. Structuring
Dr.
different.
Dufford, this is Nora. I just wanted to interrupt real quick, give you a 2-minute heads up.
Oh, thank you. Oh, I will speed it up. So structuring different spaces. So that just means basically creating different spaces around the room so that children can go to them when they need them for whatever reason. They might be having a tough time or they're just looking for comfort, but creating these different kinds of spaces, and we can talk more about that. Present toys and materials that represent all children. Representation is so important, and that again, it speaks to equity, inclusiveness. Setting the same expectations and goals. Yes, you're going to make some adaptations. Yes, you're going to create activities for that child with the unique ability. At the same time, have the same expectations of how we care for the room. We all have to clean up. We all have to share the space. We all have to share toys. All of these things that to continue helping them recognize that we are a community here. Incorporate music, one of my favorites. Music, when I was working in a daycare, I think whether it was singing that I did during my sessions or just having music in the background, children really respond and learn better through music and movement. Movement helps stimulate the brain. So a child with a unique ability, even if it's physical, can still move. They might just need somebody standing by them, or maybe not, or maybe someone holding them up, or they're moving in a device. But either way, they are participating in movement with all of the other children. How do we create welcoming home environments? So this one, I know some folks might think this is tough, but it actually is not as tough as we think. We just have to make that time. We have to make the time to sit and share with families what has been working well in daycare. And at the same time, we have to have a conversation as to what their daily lives look like. And their life during the week is very different from their lives during the weekends. So having those conversations, you can help support them better if you have the information. So recognizing that every home is different, so whatever strategies you use are not going to apply to every home. Facilitate those opportunities for communication, which is what I was just stating earlier, just really getting to know what does the family's daily life look like, and how does your child incorporate it into those daily activities, and create and maintain partnerships with those families. And one of the things that I did not include in this slide was, we can't give our families too much. The daily life is tough as it is, especially if they're working families. So giving them like 1 or 2 strategies that they can incorporate over like a 3-week period is golden. Again, think incremental changes. We are most certainly not going to change the world in a day. So meeting the needs of all children. So when I say all of this, remember, you are not alone. There is a team. And usually there are people like me, OTs, PTs, you have the family members, you have speech pathologists, sometimes there are ABA therapists, experienced teachers or paraprofessionals who are experienced with children with unique abilities, but making sure that you are not alone, especially when you're having, sort of a challenging time and coming up with strategies and ideas. And ensuring that there's access and you're providing those accommodations, but access to all children, no matter what their abilities or their varying abilities are. And just breathe. Again, you're only going to make incremental changes. You're not going to make changes in one day. So, be kind to yourself and realize that you're doing the important work. You're doing such great work with these children. You're here. So giving yourself the opportunity to just say, okay, maybe I'm not at my best today. So I'm going to maybe just contribute in this one way because that's the capacity that I have today. So always taking that moment and just kind of checking in with yourself and knowing where you are that day. And then you're going to have days that you were just going to be, the maverick, and, you're going to be like changing to making all kinds of contributions and all kinds of changes in all of these children's lives. So this is just basically a conclusion slide. It just wraps up everything that I said. What I did was make a slide. This last slide has a Google Drive, and I just dumped a bunch of resources in there for all of you. You have editing rights, you can download, you can access the links, all of those things. And I'll just periodically continue to dump some things in there. So feel free to still, access this Google Drive at different times during the year. And hopefully I did it within those 2 minutes and left enough time for some questions.
You did great. You did great. We have just maybe 1 minute for questions, but did want to encourage people to put things in the Q&A. We did get a bunch of questions kind of prior to this session, so I think a lot of your presentation answered those questions. We will send the presentation out too, and so we will make sure that folks have access to that Google Drive. We really appreciate you setting that up and making sure people have access to as many resources as helpful to them. So if you do have a question, you can drop it in the Q&A, and we can ask Bridget if there's anything specific. I'm just going to let them think for a minute.
And I just want to add, a lot of you are already doing some of these things, you just don't really realize that you are. So it's really, again, taking some inventory of, what kind of activity are you doing at the moment? So even if it's a drawing activity, and maybe you just need some adapted scissors versus just a typical scissor for a child, that would be making the space inclusive. So I didn't know, was there anything?
Great. I didn't see anything come in.
Okay.
Oh, here we go. Here's one. Is there a difference between disability and neurodiversity? I'm hearing the term a lot.
So neurodiversity is primarily used for children with autism. And because they wanted to, the autistic community wants to recognize that they are neurodiverse or sort of, again, diverse in their way of thinking. So that's specifically applicable to that rather than being seen as people with a disability, especially because a child with autism actually falls under a psychiatric diagnosis. So it's a DSM-5 classification versus the kind of disability that that we would primarily think of as learning disability or physical disability or speech and language.
Here's a quick question. I know we're spending more time than we have, so
Sure.
It's a great question though. So our program is more than willing to create these spaces, and we already do, but what do you do when your teachers are not trained to work with children with special needs?
Yes, I mean, and for I can talk about it in terms of an occupational therapist because I did work a lot with teachers and worked in the classrooms. And I think opening up that space and that there has to be that conversation. The teacher has to feel comfortable with wanting me to share that space with them and support them. There are so many continuing education and professional development opportunities to be able to work with our children with unique abilities. I mean, there's just so many options, and which I have included in the
resources.
The Google Drive. Thank you. The Google document. I was like
Yeah.
trying to access the word. Yes, just recognizing that you're not alone. So the teacher has to be open and want to. And I've had some, really courageous conversations with teachers over the years and have built some wonderful friendships and partnerships in doing so. And you just have to meet people where they are and just give them a moment. And if they don't reach the place where you think they should be, then hey, again, we're making incremental changes and we're not going to be able to, change everyone, so to speak.
That's right.
If we're even really changing people at all.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Esport. This was great. I really appreciate it. We are, of course, running out of time, but please check out the Google Drive, and we're going to send around the presentation so everybody has access to it. Thank you so much. And we do have 5 minutes left, and of course, are never going to reach all of our pieces. So I would just ask, we wanted to spend a minute because there's an opportunity through the Head Start expansion in New York, and we wanted to get this on child care providers' radar. So we've invited Patty Purcell, New York statewide Head Start collaboration coordinator here, and Pamela Maxtat, who is working with 0 to 3 and with Patty on expanding access to early Head Start in New York. Now, Patty and Pam, we have like no time, of course. So I wanted to, maybe if you guys could just hit the high notes, and we will send around the full presentation for folks to learn more, but I'll pass it over to you guys.
Yes, that's great. Thanks, Nora and everybody. So we have a whole webinar that we can do. We're going to make sure that comes to Nora and her team to send out to everyone so that we can have a full hour with you to really talk about the opportunities that are facing the nation right now to expand Head Start and early Head Start by partnering with existing child care and family child care sites. So we want to make sure you have an opportunity to hear all about that, ask your questions. It can be it's a very informal webinar. So please do look at that when that comes from Nora's team. And just very, very quickly, Head Start is a federally funded program that really looks at the 2-generational approach, the child and the family, and it includes all of the comprehensive components of healthy development. So everything from mental health, family engagement, social services, education, nutrition, and yes, disability services coordination. So it comes with the support that all of our programs need. We know that there's a lot of children with disabilities that some are getting their services and some are not. I'm sorry, Bridget, you're not muted anymore. So we did want to make sure you all know about a current posting for the expansion, which ends on May 14th. So if you ever wanted to partner with your local Head Start, now's the time. And we also will help people get ready for the next round of expansion. So the idea is to draw more people to Head Start, to be able to serve more children in early Head Start and Head Start. So I apologize that we are really not able to go into grave detail, but if you join our other webinar, you'll be able to find out how do I contact my local Head Start program. You know, what do I need to know? What do I need to do? Also, we have some information around disability services that we'll also send on to Nora. That I work at the New York State Council on Children and Families, where we've pulled together some resources about developmentally appropriate practices, including what does the continuum of developmental and disability services look like in New York? What are children and families entitled to? And so we want to make sure that gets out to everybody too, as you're grappling with how do we best serve all kids in the least restrictive environment. So there's a lot of things that I know we only have like half a minute. So I'm going to turn it back over to Nora and we will see you later. Sorry,
Patty,
Pam.
when is the do you have the webinar set up yet?
No, we'll do it whenever people are available. So we really want to make sure that everybody gets a turn. We can do lots of different ones. So we'll send you how to let Pam know about that.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So, and there also is on ECETP, there is a kind of very elementary kind of 101 free training on, you know, introduction to working with kids with special needs, introduction to working with early intervention and the early intervention coordinating councils. So that is available free to providers too. So to the question about, you know, how do we work with teachers who don't have any familiarity in this area, maybe just giving that kind of very initial training. So one real quick on our last minute, we wanted to give some resources, but also do some news you can use. This is the beautiful presentation that Patty and Pam were going to do. I want to introduce our new commissioner, Dr. Damia Harris-Madden. She has started, the governor announced it in March, but now she's actually here. She comes to us from Westchester, and where she was executive director of the Westchester Youth Bureau, and has a ton of experience in after school and school age children, as well as working with a variety of youth development initiatives. She is in Westchester and here, so she's splitting her time, and we're really excited that she's joined us. And just a couple other things here. Our CCDF plan, I know you've heard me talk about it, but I'm talking about it again. The CCDF plan is the thing that kind of we submit to the federal government that kind of says how we're going to spend our dollars and how we're going to comply with all of the rules that the federal government sets. We are in a planning process right now. There's going to be public hearings May 8th, 9th, 10th. The draft plan is going to be posted very soon, and you will get an email about that. You can read through the draft plan, almost 300 pages, and then come to the public hearing. The Friday one is on my birthday, and so it will be a really fun one. So if you want to come. So, and then we want to have all public comments in at the May 22nd. So we're looking forward to getting your feedback and comments on the plan. Thank you so much for that. Our contact information, if you want to see future topics or future speakers, is in the presentation as well. And then we did put some additional resources and information in the presentation as well. But I really want to thank everyone for coming. Apologies for going over, that's not my style. But thank you so much for coming, and feel free to send more information. Thank you, Andres, for interpretation, and thank you so much for your assistance. And I hope everybody has a great day. Thank you so much.